I'm so glad on Friday's show that I took the stance I did so that today it doesn't seem retroactive. It doesn't seem like with the benefit of hindsight that, who needs him? I told you on Friday, I'm not going to rehash the whole thing. If you want to go watch it, go watch it. It's on the After Further Review YouTube channel. And while you're there, subscribe. But my whole premise was basically Clowney's never been elite. He's never been a double-digit sack guy. In 6 seasons, he's never played a full 16-game schedule. Marcus Davenport actually doubled the sack total a year ago that Clowney had. And some of you were saying, well, they want him for run defense, which is bogus. Plus, the Saints were third in the NFL with 51 sacks a year ago, and they've been one of the best run defenses in the NFL for the last 3 years. The Saints have not allowed a 100-yard rusher since Samaje Perine did it with the Redskins in 2017. So the Saints didn't need to break the bank for Jadeveon Clowney. And when I saw the number that Tennessee's giving him, $15 million, thank God New Orleans didn't spend that money for a one-year deal on Jadeveon Clowney. What they did do, however, was very creative. And I completely salute Mickey Loomis and Kai Harley and Sean Payton and the whole front office for their creativity and how they tried to get this done. It's unprecedented. The NFL does not allow sign and trades, but the Saints tried, and that was nixed. The Saints apparently, to boil this down, had a deal where Cleveland was going to sign Jadeveon Clowney, pay him his signing bonus, and then trade Clowney to New Orleans for a second-round pick. In essence, the Browns were going to pay the money, and the Saints were going to give them a second-round pick. So the Browns were, in essence, buying a second-round pick from New Orleans. So the Saints would have gotten a smaller cap number. Cool. They would have gotten the player, essentially, for a second-round pick. That's a much more palatable deal than $15 million. Today, Tuesday, Mike Florio reported, though, that there was another team trying to do the same thing, Baltimore, and that ultimately Jacksonville would have signed Clowney and traded him to Baltimore. The sign and trade deal would have landed Clowney in Baltimore, not in New Orleans. So believe what you want to believe. The bottom line is Clowney's a Tennessee Titan now. Mike Detillier told you that on the show a month ago that Clowney was going to sign with Tennessee, and ultimately he did. I credit New Orleans for their ambition, for their creativity, but I'm so glad that this got nixed. The money would have been more manageable because of the sign and trade, but it's still too much. And quite honestly, I want draft picks if I'm New Orleans. And I know how the Saints have looked at the draft, but you're moving into a time period now where you've got to decide who you're going to pay. You obviously, we're talking about Kamara in a second, but Kamara's contract's coming due. Next year at this time, you're going to have to pay Ramczyk and Lattimore. You got to decide what you're going to do this offseason with Marcus Williams, with Demario Davis. You're going to have a $20 million cap hit next year with Drew Brees, whether he's on the roster or not, because he'll have $20 million in dead money on the roster. And you're looking at a year where the cap could drop to $175 million because of reduced revenue because of COVID. So all of those things therein tell me, I want draft picks. I want really good players on rookie deals. That's how the Saints ultimately built this run that they've had. They hit on all those guys in 2017 and then replicated it in 2018 and beyond. So if you're wondering, for this upcoming draft, the Saints have their full allotment of picks and 2 compensatory picks. They're in line to get a third-round compensatory pick for Teddy Bridgewater and a 6th-round compensatory pick for A.J. Klein. So the Saints, as it stacks up right now, actually have 9 picks for this upcoming draft, and it could be a year where I know they love to trade picks and move up, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. I'd be surprised if they didn't. But this is also a year where I think they're going to use more picks than they did this past year, where they just didn't have enough roster spots to sign all those guys or keep all those guys. Because of where you're going to be in the salary cap, you're going to have to make that decision next year. I'm glad they retained their 2nd-round pick instead of giving it up for Jadeveon Clowney. All right, it's After Further Review. Sean Payton did, when he met with the media, talk about the strategy that they used to try to sign Jadeveon Clowney over this past weekend.
We felt like we got close. We weren't able to match the money, and that's one of the challenges each year when you're going after a player. What type of space do you have? Mickey and Kai and those guys did a great job of really spending time with his representation. In the meantime, we had a good visit when we went out to see him, and it was one thought just creatively relative to essentially having a team sign a player, take some of the financial burden away from the team they trade them to, and essentially then get a draft pick back. The first response we got really from the league we felt was fairly positive, and then ultimately they decided against it. So, we move forward.
So Jadeveon Clowney ends up back with Mike Vrabel, who was the defensive coordinator in Houston when Clowney was there and had his most productive years in the NFL. Now the Saints turn their full attention to Alvin Kamara. And it was Adam Schefter earlier this morning who reported that the Saints and Alvin Kamara are close to a contract. This is what Sean Payton said when asked about this, before the Schefter report over the weekend. Here's what Payton said.
Yeah, look, I think, number one, we would never discuss any type of contract progress with the media. I'm confident that at some point we'll get this done, and we'll let you know when that happens.
So the report from Schefter via Twitter today, and it's important to note there, Payton said, I'm confident we'll get this done. So the idea of trading him, Kamara not being part of this roster, that ship has sailed, and they're going to get this thing done. Schefter this morning tweeted, Saints and Pro Bowl running back Alvin Kamara are, quote, extremely close to a lucrative new extension that the two sides are hoping to finalize in the next few days per sources. The deal would silence any recent trade speculation to keep Kamara in New Orleans during the prime of his career. So, again, that was the report from Adam Schefter this morning. He followed it up by saying the two sides, Saints and Kamara, both want and need to get a deal done. The players are off today, so there's a window to get it done, but it's coming. All the talk has brought them to the finish line. So that's the report from Adam Schefter. A couple of things. It's very clear when you look at the money. We know McCaffrey set the market at 16. Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon in that $12 million range. It's very clear Kamara wants more, and the Saints are going to give him more than that. That's more than I would give him. We've talked about this. For me, I think Alvin Kamara is worth $10.5 million. He's not an every down bell cow back. He's very versatile. He's perfect in this offense, but I don't think the market would reset for Alvin Kamara. That's just my opinion. I could be dead wrong, but the Saints are clearly going to give him more than I would. Fine. I want Alvin Kamara on the team. Two things why it's a very good thing that they're getting this done now. Number one, you don't need this distraction. It's game week. I mean, we're kind of it's Tuesday. The Saints play the Bucs in 5 days, which is it's mind-blowing to even think because there haven't been any preseason games. It feels like we're all a bit disconnected. We've all been disjointed since March, but the Saints play in 5 days against Tampa. You need Alvin Kamara on the field for that game and all this season, and you don't need this lingering and the possibility of a holdout, all that stuff people were talking about. That needs to be gone. And the other thing is you need Kamara on the team. I went back and dug today and looked at Kamara's 6 games in his career against Tampa. The 2 games in 17, the 2 games in 18, the 2 games last year. For his career against Tampa, Alvin Kamara has averaged 11 rushes for 55 yards, 7 catches for 67 yards, and a score. He scored 6 times in his career in 6 games against Tampa Bay. This is a guy who he's averaging 120 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown. I need that guy on the field against Tampa on Sunday because there's a good possibility, as we've seen throughout the early part of college football, that you could have this deluge of points because defenses aren't used to live tackling and nobody's really up to speed. You didn't have preseason in the NFL. Like, you could end up in some track meets here early in the season. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So I want Kamara on the field Sunday with no distractions and ready to roll against Tampa. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.